Welcome to the MLB Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guys Mo Nawara in the Midwest, and we got Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at a Thursday slate here, lots of day games, so we are only going to look at a few of these nighttime games for you. Pretty small slate when you do take away those day games. Obviously on a Thursday, that's pretty common. So we will be bringing you some of these best bets in the available games for us. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We are bringing you these videos each and every weekday of this regular season. Also want you to head to thelines.com. Got plenty of great written content on there from Nate, Mo, and the gang all summer and into this fall. Also have that great odds checker tool there so you can make sure you are shopping those lines to the best of your ability on thelines.com. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we've got here, starting with the first evening time game we have to work with, gentlemen, the Blue Jays and Jose Berrios at the Yankees, and Frankie Montas minus 140 for the Yanks and their young pitcher. The Red Sox and Josh Winkowski are in Pittsburgh taking on J.D. Brubaker, minus 150 for the visiting Sox there. Brad Keller and the Royals are in Tampa taking on Luis Patino, minus 210 for the home Tampa Bay Rays. Jacob deGrom and the Mets taking on Max Fried in the final game of this Mets and Braves series, minus 120 for deGrom, and a really, really good pitching matchup there. And lastly, we have the Washington Nationals and Anibal Sanchez. They are plus 310 against the Padres and Yu Darvish, who are at home at minus 380. Nothing there to really like. So let's kick things off with the series that we've been following pretty much all week so far, as I think most of the baseball world has. The Mets minus 102 at the Braves, final game minus 116. Mets looking to tie this thing up. Total of 7 runs. deGrom and Max Fried. Who wants to kick us off? Nate, why don't you tell us about this game first? deGrom and Fried on the mound.
Well, it started at minus 102 or even plus 115. I think it opened some places, and it was very quickly bet up because I don't know when you ever get Jacob deGrom at such a price. Now we're closer to minus 125. There's still an easy way to juke that, though. If you have a FanDuel account, you take the Mets with deGrom getting 7 plus Ks, and you're back to minus 102. 8 plus Ks plus 120. I don't think there's there's not a good chance that they win this without deGrom continuing his dominance, which has been unparalleled here in the small sample of 3 games. Struck out 12 when he faced the Braves just a couple weeks ago. Right now, just some silly numbers. Again, the small sample size, but 50% K rate, 50% outside the zone swing rate, and only 58% contact. So basically, guys cannot even make contact against Mr. deGrom. And the Braves are a very chase-heavy team, so if he wants to keep utilizing that slider, he should be able to get quite a few punch-outs here. On the other side, Max Fried is, I guess, a little bit more of an unknown since he's coming off a brief layoff with a concussion. He did give up 4 runs to the Mets on August 6th. The Mets are very much meh against lefties, I guess, average or slightly below average. But this has just been an exciting series. It's been playoff baseball, basically. And I think, like we saw with Scherzer, last night he didn't have, he went strong for 6 innings and then floundered a bit. But I think it's the way the Mets are going to be able to rally behind these guys. They know they're the meal ticket, the best 1-2 punch out there, the best chance they have to go deep in the postseason. And right now they really need this split to hold off the Braves, and I think they climb on deGrom's back and win. I would just look at ways for juking this line. I think if it continues to get bet the way it has, it might go higher than minus 125, and then you're not getting as much value because as good as he is, the Braves can find a way to keep this game close with Fried and maybe steal one in the later innings.
Yeah, the Mets have always been known to support deGrom with lots of runs. No,
Pause for laughter.
I do like the Mets a little bit around minus 120, actually, unfortunately. I have deGrom projected for like an ERA of like 2. I don't know how to project anyone for a better ERA than that. He's got a 24.6% swinging strike rate. So for people who may not be aware of how that stat scales, that's about double what a good swinging strike rate usually is. And 44.5% chase rate. 0.92 Sierra. These are just like unheard of numbers. The Braves, it's interesting because like he did wreck the Braves, but the Braves are actually a lead against four seamers and sliders, which is basically all DeGrom throws. But I guess when you're as good as DeGrom, I just don't even know if it even matters. And yeah, the Mets, like you said, they're not quite as strong against lefties, more like a little above average. My big worry for the Braves here is their tendency to chase, which you highlighted real quick. You just mentioned it, but to put a number on it, they're fourth in outside the zone swing rate. I think it helps the Braves quite a bit that Ozuna and Duvall are out of the picture. I'm very happy that I won't have to watch Marcell Ozuna hopefully play baseball anymore. Sounds like he might be on the bench now for Robbie Grossman. But still not the most disciplined lineup. That being said, it's not a huge edge, even though it seems crazy for the Mets to be minus 120. I mean, I had them like minus 135 or so. I wouldn't bet this past minus 125, so this is like pretty thin. But I mean, just Fried's been so good that I'm just going to be with every fish in the world, I'm sure here. But I think under 7 is also worth a look. I mean, both these teams are batting against the handedness of the pitcher that they're weaker against, and we know how good DeGrom and Fried are. So it got crazy yesterday when the Braves brought in some mediocre bullpen guys, and Scherzer maybe didn't get pulled quick enough, so that ended up being, I think, like 16 runs scored. But I like the under a little bit here. I know we said that yesterday, but I don't think it's a bad look again here.
Yeah, and like you said, it should have hit yesterday as well, to be honest with you. And if the fact that Jacob deGrom never gets run support from the Mets is anything, and you expect him to pitch well, then we probably will have an under here, according to the history of the Mets' support of their best pitcher, maybe ever, but definitely in the last couple generations. So let's move on to a game that I think we're probably eyeing a few runs in this one, as Toronto is in New York, and we are looking at a couple pitchers here. Frankie Montas not really making the transition as smoothly onto his new team here in pinstripes. And then you've also got Jose Barrios, who we were speaking about before the show started, who is entering this outing with a 15.26 ERA in this month in his first 2 starts. He cannot get anybody out. He's had a lot of issues with that curveball decline and some of the breakage there, which is super crucial for him. And like I said, I mean, Montas hasn't had that much success in that Yankees bullpen. It has been getting hit hard lately, at least. So I think there's a pretty good reason to look at this total to start. So kick things off for us, Mo. Is that where you're looking here? Is that 8.5 runs to start this one?
Everything in this game seems pretty fair to me, I would say. What I was looking at for this game is actually, I'm just interested in what the Yankees are doing with their lineup. They called up a couple of prospects, Oswaldo Cabrera and Estevan Florial. Both look like subpar MLB hitters at the moment, so that's would be my concern looking at the under, or the over rather. They're both projected like 90 WRC plus, 85 WRC plus, so a little below average hitters. Florial has some interesting skills that I don't know. He's been better in the minors, I guess, but the computers don't believe in him at all. And then I know Nate likes the Yankees a little bit, but then when I look at that, and then I look at the Jays, which have a much healthier lineup right now with Springer back, and then I think it was long overdue that they moved Matt Chapman up in the lineup. He's been hitting very well this year, especially by StatCast numbers. And yeah, I think it's big that the Yankees, we think we mentioned this yesterday or the other day, not having their 2 best bullpen arms. But all that being said, I don't bet Jose Barrios starts. I mean, I couldn't figure him out early in the season, so it's given me just plenty of peace of mind just to completely ignore all of his games. I would say if you look at Frankie Montas, though, I'm very surprised to see he's down to 25.7% called strike plus whiff rate. That's a pretty big drop, and most of his numbers look pretty good, so I'm not sure what's going on there. This is a pretty tough game to handicap overall, so not one I'm like super interested in betting.
Yeah, the Blue Jays getting healthier, but DJ LeMahieu expected back for the Yankees tonight. He pinch hit last night, so maybe that knocks one of those prospects out of the lineup, and that could help them. The Blue Jays lineup, despite all their talent, has really been floundering lately. In the last 7 days, 58 weighted runs created plus. They've lost 8 of 11. Much worse on the road this year. But that all being said, I expect some runs to be scored against these guys. Yeah, Montas, I think it's going to take some time for him to hit his stride. And what we've seen with Barrios is just the absolute boom-bust nature. And 2 against the Yankees this year, giving up quite a bit of production, 3 homers, 8 earned runs. So I think you can look at some correlation here to say the Yankees money line in the over, you get plus 220 there. If you take them to win with the run line here, I know not always the best call at home, but against Barrios, they could be up big early. It's plus 350 with that correlation. They are going to get back on track here. They finally got a win against the Rays. It took a miracle, grand slam in the 10th, but I mean, that's the kind of thing that can spark you. And like I said, DJ is a key part of their lineup, key table setter that they were missing since they also lost Carpenter. So I think that the Yanks, now's the time to turn the momentum for them to start getting back to their run scoring ways. And I think over 8.5 is in play here, but I like the Yankees more than anything.
That's fair. I'm going to finish things off here with a game that I think I'm also looking at a lack of runs, to be honest. If I had to guess anything, we've got Josh Winkowski and the Sox in Pittsburgh taking on J.D. Brubaker, who I suppose is the best pitcher on that staff at this point now that Jose Quintana's gone as well. No offense for the Pirates. Mo's been telling us that all season. The numbers are clearly telling us that as well. But I would also point out that Boston's offense has fallen completely off the planet, and in the past month is basically a bottom 5 offense, WRC plus, ranking near the bottom in walk rate, strikeout. I mean, pretty much all of these key categories to get on base and avoid getting out. They're not good at that right now. So I would consider here 8.5 runs feels a bit high for this game. That might be my favorite play in this one, knowing that I really don't feel very comfortable betting on either of these teams. But Nate, I'll let you start us off here with those Sox and your hometown team from your childhood. What do you feel here about Winkowski and Brubaker in this matchup?
Well, I wasn't really going to back Winkowski, who just kind of depends on a lot of weak contact, a lot of grounders, but the Pirates will give you that. Like we've been saying, betting this whole series on the Red Sox, even at minus 140, minus 150, it's been pretty reliable. I mean, there isn't really a better get-right matchup in the majors than facing this Pirates lineup, especially if Brian Hayes remains out. That weakens them even more. And Brubaker, who most says has been pitching well, but the contact rate is alarming in the second half. 50% hard contact, 38% line drives. He's given up at least 50% hard hit in 4 straight starts, including a 70% hard contact rate his last home start against the Phils. So maybe this is a good spot for Boston to bounce back. For the under, though, I will say the curveball seems to be his best pitch, and Boston is dreadful against the curve. 23rd on the season, 24th over the last 30 days. So I could definitely see the argument there for this swinging back the other way. The Pirates have gone over or pushed, I think, in 12 of their last 14 games, though, because their bullpen is so terrible and they have no real good starters. So maybe you want the Red Sox run total over here, or just the Red Sox to win yet again and capitalize on this matchup.
Yeah, I think the bullpens here are my main concern for sure. It's 2 very bad bullpens. But yeah, Brubaker's actually been pretty solid this year. Stop me if you've heard this one before about a Pirates former solid prospect, but switching to a sinker has done wonders for this guy, just like it did for Mitch Keller. All of a sudden, so he's always had like pretty good peripherals, and you touched on his weak point has always been the contact, but it just hasn't been as damaging this year. He's pitching more to his peripherals, average to above average across the board on like called strike plus whiff, chase rate, first strike. He used to have a pretty big home run problem last year. He's cut that, so he's pitching decent. And then on the other side of the ball, it's just you won't find a worse lineup than what the Pirates are putting out there. I mean, something called Tucupita Marcano is leading off, I guess. He has a 220 xWOBA. I mean, I'm sure there's pitchers who can manage a 220 xWOBA. I mean, it's incredible how bad the Pirates lineup is at this point. There's a reason they're like basically losing every day. And yeah, Winkowski, he's actually been okay. He was very, very good in AAA this year. So I think that he's like better than replacement level for sure. So in that park with these,
Right.
with this Pittsburgh offense and actually probably a decent underrated starter, I do think under 8.5 is worth a look here. I did put a little bit of that in my account. So, totals not my forte over the years, but I do like this one.
Yeah, it's PNC Park, and the fact that it's not going to, you're not really leaving the park very often, right? I think that they're in top 10 in terms of limiting home runs in terms of that park for sure. So I think with a guy throwing heavy balls like Winkowski, it's not likely that you're going to see too many runs coming from the Pirates. They're not going to exactly build momentum in an inning, get too many in a row. They're really going to need the ball to leave the park, and that's something that Josh Winkowski doesn't allow, combined with a very large outfield there for PNC. So that is all the time we have for you on this Thursday slate. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we are bringing you these videos each and every weekday of this regular season. So until we see you next, happy betting.